Hi everyone, Troy Richardson here. We're in this podcast called Zip File. Try that again. Hi everyone, Troy Richardson here with Nate Shepherdson, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're with the Zipped Files. Yeah, that's right. It's a new podcast that we started where we're opening up files about zipline accidents. Nate, tell me a little bit about yourself. We've known each other for, what, 6 months now?
Yeah, about 6 months.
Yeah.
Goodness, I have a varying background. You could maybe even say eclectic. I got about 8-9 years in sales. Kind of got bored of that. Went to UVU, this very school.
Very good.
Great school.
Very good.
They had a program, 2-year program, electronics automation and robotics technology.
Oh.
I got a 2-year degree. Started working at Micron. Back then it was IM Flash. It was a joint venture between Micron and Intel. Absolutely loved it. One of the things that they pushed harder than anybody I've ever seen is continuous improvement.
Right on.
And there is nothing more fun than working somewhere that has that mindset.
Yeah.
And Micron, I love you, but when you kicked out Intel, they kind of went away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things about being a joint venture, it was a Micron Intel joint venture, is we got to tell each parent company, no, we're going to do it our way. And we created we were called the Alpha Fab at Micron. Meaning we were the best, we had the best talent, we had the best mindset, the best culture, it was the best place to work, and we produced their best product.
So do you remember what the name of the methodology was that you were pushing the products out? Were you looking at, was it like stage gate, or was it agile or scrum, or, because that's what I'm studying right now in this.
It used to be called the Toyota production model,
okay,
TPM.
that's
but
agile.
We can't use Toyota.
Yeah, well,
So
agile, Toyota started agile.
they switched it to total productive maintenance.
Oh.
It's part of lean manufacturing.
Yes.
And it translates to every business. And it's the one
Definitely.
thing that I think kills most businesses is they don't care to innovate. They want to do it the way they've done it forever. And
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
I don't want to say anything negative about any company, but Texas Instruments bought that fab in Lehigh. And from what I hear, they don't care about improving their yield. They get 70% yield and they are happy with that.
Yeah.
When I was working at IM Flash, we wanted to have bare minimum 94% yield, meaning that of all the chips on a 300 millimeter wafer, 94% of those we could ship out the door.
Well, that's right
at
into
full
Six
price.
Sigma.
Yeah, Six
Sigma,
Sigma, right?
yeah.
Exactly, same
Yeah,
thing. And
right
Six
on.
Sigma, they, that was a methodology that they wanted us to use, but we didn't fully adopt it. It was just like, hey, we have classes that'll teach you how to be a green belt, yellow belt, black belt,
Yeah.
whatever stage
Yeah.
you need to become.
Definitely.
I never took advantage of that, but they also offered so many other classes, and that was part of their not only continuous improvement but continuous training. Was, for instance, everybody took a statistics class,
Nice.
bare minimum, because we dealt with so much data
Yeah.
that we had to understand the jargon, the lingo, and just exactly, when do you want the median, when do you want the average, when do you want the most,
Exactly.
right? Like,
That's
it
cool.
seems
I didn't know
simple,
that about
but
you.
sometimes you're going to parse through your data. And if you don't know, what outliers do to your data,
Yeah.
that's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
If you don't know the difference between average and your median and which one to use at different points in time, I've forgotten it since
Yeah.
then.
Well, and at least you know how to ride the bike.
Yeah, and they promoted technicians to engineer positions.
Right
You didn't
on.
need a 4-year degree.
Right on.
And
They called you engineers because I'm fighting with the state of
I
Utah
call
on that.
myself an engineer.
Well, the state of Utah fined me $1,000. I definitely wrote a letter, and we're going to see where this goes. But my congressman got involved. And I just said, you can't be saying that if I say I'm an engineer, I'm a professional or a licensed engineer. That's contradictory for, the rhetoric of risk. As a technical writer, you got to make it plain language. And that's what the Plain Language Act did in 2010, is it told the governments, you need to talk in an 8th grade education level and not try to confuse people with your websites. And, for me, I just wanted to give you a heads up what I'm doing. So I'm in this master's program. This is right now I'm in product processing management. And we're studying Agile, Scrum, and StageGate, and the high-red models that go in there. And it's right in with what I'm planning on doing right now, because we're trying to get the engineering all done for the challenge course we're building.
Yeah.
Because right now, only challenge courses, they don't have 100 zip lines. And so the challenge course we're going to build on 5 acres is going to be 6 stories and have 100 zip lines, because it's an octagon, and we can literally connect 2 to every, so that makes 16 per level.
Okay. And you're going to go 6 levels high.
We're going to go 6 levels
I love
high.
it.
Yeah.
Is that going to be all outdoors?
Yeah, and
Some indoor, some outdoor?
that's where we've got some options. So we're going to build it in such a way that you can put panels on. Maybe you can even advertise with those panels. So when it does get cold, and it does here, that we can accommodate people that maybe don't want to be in 32 below or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get that cold, but definitely we can get down to 0.
It can go in the low teens.
Yes.
Every winter we get some low teens.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. Sorry, Canadian friends, but
Yeah.
we use Fahrenheit here in America.
Yeah. Well, and just to update you on what I'm doing. So this week, for my zipline expert witness work, I've taken on 3 new cases. They dumped on a whole mess load of work for a university. Believe it or not, a university built a challenge course, and then they didn't follow the standards and regulations. They didn't even follow what the inspector come in and said, hey, you need to do this, you need to keep track of that. And a guy literally 50 foot high on a zip line, he starts going down the zip line, and then simultaneously his gree, which is a device that he can lower himself down, starts malfunctioning because it was loaded with hand oils. The rope itself was so corroded, it was brown, and hand oils and dirt, and the end of the rope was orange. And so they weren't even maintaining their dynamic rope. So he leaves that platform, and immediately he's simultaneously dropping 2 different ways. He's going downward on a slope, and he's going straight down because he burns his hands. And my estimation is he arrived about 20 miles an hour. And I don't know what it is, but I think if you bounce 3 times, like he said, that's probably about what he was doing. Because
He survived.
He survived, but he's got brain damage, and it's just frustrating. But that's the way the industry's gone.
Not all of them survive.
No. In fact, 2 weeks ago I did took on my 5th wrongful death.
Man.
And it's stupidity. It's like,
You know what breaks my heart about that? Like I was saying, working in industry, preventative maintenance is just part of your blood.
yeah,
It's in your bloodstream. We have these things set up on a cadence that we know will prevent 99% of accidents. Well, not accidents, but just malfunctions, right?
Yeah.
Of course, for you do it at a cadence where 100% are prevented.
yes,
But it's so, like I said, these things transfer to every industry.
that's right.
Why do you not have preventative maintenance, is what I would call it, or in this case, probably just general inspection,
Yeah,
and say, hey, this thing's a little worn out. Straps,
Well-
tie down straps on semis. I
Yeah.
drove semis for a while.
I've done the
As
same.
soon as that red strip starts to disappear, you have to get rid of the strap.
Exactly,
Because
exactly.
you no longer know how much that's going to hold.
Yeah, it's built into the system, and that's the problem with the industry. It's like, do you know that right now, Granite Insurance out of North Carolina predicted in, I think it was a 2023 article, right at the end of the year, that there were going to be 1 accident for 600 or 6,700 zipliners. Now, try to figure that with, Six Sigma, where we're looking at 3 parts per million.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. And this same guy told us back in 2020 at a conference that the 2016 numbers were all in because the statute of limitations, you have 4 years. And he said those numbers were 6 to 7 accidents, and half were braking related. So it's like these 2-wheeled pulleys that are out there that travel at 95% gravity that don't have an emergency brake. And that's why, you told me right off, you're too big to ride a zip line.
Yeah.
On my zip line with a friction braking trolley, we can put 600-pound, in fact, we're doing that, 600-pound riders. Well, what they are is they're a patron that's seated in his motorized wheelchair. Because we figured out that if you take somebody out of their wheelchair, it's like taking a limb off them. So you want to keep them in that and accommodate them for that. So we're doing that out in Pennsylvania right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's literally where we're going with this ZAP model, is we're literally gonna have a park like Morgan's Wonderland and Hershey Park, that if you have a diagnosed disability, you get in for free. Because 33% of the people out there have a diagnosed disability. And the beauty of that is, one, you're opening it up to the community and making it more accessible. And two, you're giving somebody the opportunity that they would never have.
Can I tell you something I love about that?
Yeah.
I have a daughter with autism. She's 6 years old. Now, when most people think of autism, they think sensory avoiders. They don't like loud noises.
There's so many different
They
things.
don't like
Yeah.
to be touched. She's a sensory seeker.
Ooh.
She's in the minority, but oh my goodness, she's a terror at home. But I love her.
Yeah.
She's so much fun. She loves to just jump on dad, jump on mom. I have so many bruises.
How old is she?
6.
Oh, wow.
She'll be 7 soon.
Oh, wow.
And she loves swings. She loves zip lining.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, you say that, and I'm like, yes, that's awesome. That's another opportunity for me to give her what she enjoys most, which is just being daring, jumping off of things, zip lining, whatever it happens to be. That's great for somebody like my daughter.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to have autism days. We're going to have storytelling days. We're going to have, well, 2 of the people that I have at my advisory board, I don't know if you know Dax Levine, but he developed a board game at a haunted house last Halloween. And so he's going to be developing these board games on this 6th. So we're getting people out of the home, away from their Black Mirror or their phone or whatever, and getting them out doing something and intermingling. And so, like I said, we're going to have an autism day where anybody with autism come for free, you know. And
I love that.
yeah, it.
You'll get so much support. And I need to get you in touch with my wife because she's an admin on a
I heard,
Utah Moms,
yeah, I heard her talk
Utah
about it.
Autism Moms.
1 Million Cups.
And I mean, they're at least once every other month they're putting something together
Nice.
to get, you know, golly, I bet you get an average of 40 kids at one of their events.
That is
And
cool.
So, and that's one of the things I love about Utah.
Yeah.
Is you just get a lot of that community, regardless of what bucket you fall into.
Yeah.
There's a community for you here.
Yeah. Well, and autism has always been a part of our family. That one of our granddaughters, Faith, she was able to go through the Giant Steps. And I don't know if your daughter went through Giant Steps, but it was a program that started about in 2000, and she excelled. She was nonverbal when she went in, and by the time she graduated, which I think she was 3 years old, she was high functioning. And the Giant Steps was able to throw a bill together, and they named it the Carson Bill in the state of Utah. Really cool, because autism does, does affect people, and there needs to be kind of standards and regulations and bills that help.
She's had some therapy, and they actually help her at school. Thankfully, we're at a school where they allow for that, and she's come a long way. I thought she wouldn't be verbal, and then she started to just memorize sentences that helped her. But now she's starting to understand the abstract thought that goes into the language itself, and she can form her own sentences and actually, just almost communicate like a normal kid now.
Yeah.
She's only 6.
You know,
she's doing great.
That is cool, because I've seen some autism that just doesn't get caught soon enough. Doesn't, because with Faith, we're like, okay, we got to be able to communicate with her. We thought of Helen Keller, not that was, but because we were worried. She wasn't blind or anything like that. So we started signing, and she finally got mad, realized that she had to talk instead of sign. And so one time we were in the checkout line going out, and she's doing this, and this means more candy.
Yeah, my wife's a sign language interpreter, so I know that one. And now I have to put in this disclaimer: we love our autistic children, and we don't think we need to change them. We just want to set them up to be as productive or as successful as they can in our society, right? We don't want to change them. We don't want to eliminate autism.
No.
We want them to function within it, because I love the way that my daughter thinks.
That's right. They have superpowers.
She teaches me something probably almost every day.
Definitely.
Where they get to see things a little bit differently. And man, you can learn so much from that.
Oh, I learned so much from children.
Blessing.
Yes. Well, and that's the whole goal. It's, as I built this park, I realized, because you do that many case studies, you realize what's missing. And one insurer told me that, I said, well, it's a braking related problem, because 70% of the accidents I investigate are braking related. And the insurance guy said over 50 was back in the day, or in 2016. But this one other insurance company, because there are really only 2 insurers left, Lloyd's of London pulled out in 2021. They said, we will no longer cover zip lines.
Wow.
And it left a lot of people hanging. But this Hibbs Hallmark guy told us, he said, it's training. And as I look at that case that I'm doing at this university at Northern Utah, it just made me mad because they were missing on the training, and this is it. Learning university, a state-run university. And they're not doing their training and not doing their documentation. And what ended up happening is the girl didn't have the 40 hours worth of training. They pulled her in on like a, oh, we need you, you know, somebody didn't show up, and she'd been trained the year before or whatever. But some of the equipment was, and she didn't know how to make sure that, you know, before you let somebody leave and they're in a gree that they are supported. Yeah. You want them to take their feet off the ground and make sure that gree is not going to slide through, because it's kind of like a mechanical advantage type thing. It's Petzls, but there's been a lot of accidents with it, and so I don't know why they still were using it. But
it sounds like an industry that is surprising it's still around.
And my friend told me, because my friend Ken Moore, he's on our advisory board, he's with Robertson Harness. He told me, he said, I thought it was going to go the way of the hand gliding industry years ago, because the hand gliding industry got to the point where you couldn't get insurance anymore. And that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing. I start investigating these accidents, and I realized that the trolley I built for Park City Mountain Resort, a friction braking trolley, could work on, and so it just needed to be smaller, because the trolley I built was 25 pounds, and nobody wants to haul 25 pounds.
Is the friction on the wheel itself?
No, the wheels, you got to have them almost perfect. So they got to be, you know, back to your Six Sigma. But the friction actually is applied on this brake here. So you put this trolley on the cable, and the nice thing about this trolley is we decided that putting it on top of the cable, we eliminate the water factor when the water,
so
if
you're
it's raining.
sacrificing the brake, and it's not damaging your cord.
No, so you only have one wheel going down the cable instead of 2. You know, and these are steel wheels, hardened or whatever. But the way it works, it's based on how you move this, the patron's weight. And so what's cool is your lightweight 40, 50-pound person puts 40, 50 pounds on this little white brake here, and a 350-pound person puts 350 pounds force. Yeah, and it equalizes. If you go up and watch Park City Mountain Resort and watch, you know, their 4 zip lines coming up and down, none of the people are, I mean, there's all different weights there, and they're all coming in about the same. And what we learned when I built a zip line in Spanish Fork in 2009. And what we learned there was the heavier riders, actually the plastic melted a little bit, creating a little more friction, which is uncommon for a heavier rider to come in slower than a lightweight one. Because in the industry, the problem that they have with the 2-wheel pulley is the lightweight one won't get it all the way. So they have to be rescued. But the heavier one, he's got all that extra energy once he comes out of that lowest point on the cable, and away he goes, and now you better stop him.
Wow.
And unfortunately, anybody over 150 pounds is 3 times more likely to be in an accident on a zip line with a 2-wheel pulley.
What's the formula for momentum?
Formula is mass times velocity.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know, because the mass of an 80-pounder is 3 times less than a 240. So that's more energy, 3 times more.
Yeah. When you start to look into the math and you realize just how much more energy is involved, even with just a little bump in speed or a little bump in mass, then you start to realize how these things happen.
These zip lines are so dynamic. Even the temperature, when the outside temperature, so a steel cable 1,000 feet long will shrink or grow 2 inches for every 20 degrees. And you know, where we live, we get a 60-degree increase often. You know, it's 60 in the morning, 100 at night in the summers or whatever, you know, and so, or 40 or whatever, you know what I'm saying. But most areas, what I've found is about a 50% delta T. So the temperature changes that much. So in the morning, your zipliners that are heavier are going to be faster. And in the evening, when it gets hotter, you're going to be rescuing your 80-pounders more often. And that's, it's frustrating. The industry should have been.
There's a lot that goes behind.
There's a lot of math in this stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this, because now if you have the cable change, all you have to do, if it's colder and makes it go faster, you just move the patron's weight 1 pin placement closer. Now you've applied a little bit more braking for that colder temperature, and you keep track of your documentation all through the year. Now you've got the data points, like you were talking, your data analysis, for the rest of.
That's why you want AI.
Exactly, AI. I
To
love
start
AI.
parsing through that data. That's smart. That
Well,
makes sense.
and that totally, I'm an AI guru. I like it. I use it for certain things, but I'm always fact checking it. And I'm paying for the version, I'm paying for it. And I found it hallucinates. I mean, it'll tell me, I'll say, cite this, give me the page number, because I know it's in there. And then it throws a goofy page number. I have to go find it. And I'm like, you dummy.
Well, you know what the great thing about AI for data is it can turn you on to things that you never would have caught yourself.
Oh, you better believe it.
And it'll say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? For instance, the last job I was at for 2.5 years, I was working on a furnace. I'm not going to get into the details because it's really complicated and there's a lot of chemistry involved. But we were taking 3D printed silicon carbide, which it was the nuclear industry, and it's just a great substance to contain nuclear because it transfers heat fairly well, and it can withstand heat up to almost 3,000 degrees Celsius. And
wow,
the internals of our furnace weren't allowing us to deposit, so we'll inject gas, and we'll heat up the furnace to 1,000 degrees Celsius.
Kind of get a plasma type
and the
going.
gas will turn into silicon carbide when it touches a surface, and that allows us to densify these 3D printed shells that we were making, and then you would put uranium in it, and then we'd solidify it.
Oh my heck.
Cool process. I hope it works. I hope they make it into an actual reactor. But talking to a buddy of mine who's in the AI space, I'm thinking, man, I wish we had your product because it took us a full 1.5 years to understand that we had leaks in our internal chamber to the furnace. We were getting argon.
Like gas leaks?
We were using argon as a shield gas to prevent our stainless steel body from because part of the precursor gas that we were using, the effluent that we were getting was not hydrochloric acid. It doesn't turn into an acid until it gets wet, but it was hydrogen chloride, which is still quite corrosive, and it'll embed itself, and then it'll just rust out our chamber.
Well, yeah, I worked at WECO. I know exactly. We were ammonium perchlorate and sodium perchlorate. I mean, we were dealing with that sodium would come in as a metal.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to get any water on it.
That's a good way to cause an explosion. So we, and then we'd send it downstream. We'd put it in a scrubber. We'd add some sodium hydroxide to it. Turns it into table salt, and we send it to the wastewater. It's perfect. Awesome situation. But because of that shield gas argon around we called it a retort inside of our furnace, and it had different, sections, these big graphite rings, we were getting argon penetrating into our central chamber.
Interesting.
And we knew something was going on, and we knew that might have been a problem, but it kind of bugs me looking back because it took us 1.5 years to really figure it out. We were looking at a lot of different flow paths, like what's the gas doing?
Yeah, and you're doing it without AI, right?
Smooth laminar flow. We had no AI. And I told our buddy Fortunatus, I'm like, man, I wish we had your product that you're building, because it probably would have seen that. Because we were taking the data of like every shell, how much mass gain we were getting, and
plotting it on a line.
Exactly. My chemical engineer used Python to
Yeah.
make a 3D model of every single recipe run.
Wow.
And I think AI would have been like, hey, you have these same zones every time. It looks like it's over here, it looks like it's over there, and we could have seen that this argon was interfering with our actual process gas. So I'm a big fan of AI and what it can do. Obviously, you always double check it.
Yeah.
And
fact check it. It's kind of like, AI is a little bit like conjecture. Sometimes it gives you the public opinion where we're looking for the facts.
That's true. That's true. Like Google, I feel, is going the way of the dodo, the search engine.
Yeah.
Because AI is so powerful. But every time I use AI, I still have to back it up with the Google search to make sure that or I'll just go to the link that it says it found it from and
find
do
the
my
sources.
own research anyway.
Yeah.
AI is a powerful tool, but it's going to be a long time before it's at a place where we can, and maybe we'll never be able to fully trust it.
Well, and I think it's wise not to fully trust it, because then you're trusting whoever created it, and how, what kind of biases they put in there. If we could all be on the same page, and the voice of the people would be a little bit more maybe we could get there. But I still think we got to have that
powerful
internal, governance. And we both believe in God. I mean,
Yeah.
we're God-fearing people, and we just want to look, good to Him, really. We're trying to help Him along the way, bring people in. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this Zip File podcast is I'm trying to tell the stories of those people whose lives were extremely changed. Let me share a story with you. So my first accident, this is quite interesting. Me and my wife were losing our house. It was those bad years in 2011, and our house in Elk Ridge was under foreclosure, and I was down working on a boiler, and I was back to doing that. I'd earned my engineering degree, and it just wasn't what I was hoping. And I get a call, and the guy says, "Hey, I want to look at your zipline trolley, and you're the zipline guy." And so he says, "Where are you at?" And he was in Park City. Well, he said, "I'll drive down to meet you." I was in Delta. So he drives down to meet me, and come to find out what I was thinking this is a bill collector. He's going to serve me, and so me and my wife were just kind of like, well, we'll see what happens. Well, the guy comes in. He's actually a vascular surgeon or a urologist in Dallas, owns his own hospital, and his wife and him had been in a Airbnb or something up here in Park City. She went to the zip line at Olympic Park, and it was on the 4th of July, and she rode the zip line with her friend, but they did one thing wrong. And what they did, it was a friction braking trolley like what I use, but they literally changed the breakout, because sometimes on those systems, the one with the retrieval system and whatnot, which I wouldn't go with, they sometimes change the breakout. And anytime you change the breakout of something, you don't just send it down the thing. You want it to seat in, make sure you send it with some test weight, make sure it's going to perform properly. At least that's the way it was regulated in the operations manual. But since it was the 4th of July and they had a big backup, they just forewent that. Well, she came in, her and her friend came down this steep zip line. This is like it follows the Olympic Park ski jump. The one that you see the people going like this, and it follows that. And so she goes down it. She's speeding way ahead because the friction braking element is not engaging. And she's coming in, and she said, I don't know how she said it, but literally she said, I came in 15 seconds before her. Now, 15 seconds on a ride, that takes 30 seconds and is going to be hot. Yeah. And so she comes in, they don't have enough springs, so they had the spring system, but they used the same spring system they used at Park City, which they were totally two different systems. She collapses all the spring systems, and she's like stunned, and she gets off the zip line. She tells the guy, she's like, there's something wrong here. Well, he's like, whatever, some zipline guides that I've ran into occasionally. And she goes home to her husband and has a brain aneurysm. She burst an aneurysm, and she literally told me when I started working with her to kind of get a little more about what went on, she said, I had to learn to talk. And she said, you know how I learned to talk? And she wasn't LDS like us, or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She said, I started reading the Bible. And by me reading the Bible, I learned to talk again, which was so cool. But, that was my first case. It didn't turn out as great as I was hoping. But one thing that was cool is the first attorney, he comes down, he said, okay, he comes down to kind of assess me. He drives down to Cedar City, talks to my wife, talks to me, and he decides not to take the case. Well, I didn't know all the backstory in the case because I'm just coming in green. I have no idea. I'm a first-time expert witness. And so he doesn't take the case. Well, the doctor goes out and finds this hotshot young whippersnapper, and he's raring to go, and he's going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so I'm working with this guy. What a guy. But literally, they ended up with $100,000. And so when I went back to this other law firm, I said, yeah, they settled for like $150,000 or something like that. What? Because he thought there was no way, because during the time that they were trying to find a zipline accident, she had a car accident, and so some of the brain stuff could be attributed to that. And so, but that was my first one. And
makes it a little harder to prove with
yeah. The longer you go, accidents. Yeah. and it was unfortunate because I know she was injured, you know, and that's what's sad.
She got something.
She did,
So,
you know, and you know, but some people, these companies are getting away with, you know. And what I always tell people, I say, if you're out there and you're on a zip line or you're on a amusement ride or whatever, and you sign a waiver, whether you're at a trampoline park, just know they're counting on 99 out of you to say, oh, I signed the waiver, so I guess, you know, this broken ankle or broken toe or back that's hurting me is, you know, covered. But let me tell you, it's not. 99 out of 100 people who sign that waiver and they get injured have a case because these groups are not following the standards. So they're not. So I go over here. This is a funny one. So I go over here to this trampoline park that's right over here close to me, and I know that the trampoline standard was adopted by the state of Utah because I was part of it. I helped kind of get that in 2019, and so I asked them. I said, because you know I moved into town a year ago, and I'm like, well, maybe I can inspect their course for them. You know, maybe I can help them be safer. I said, so who's inspecting your course annually? Oh, we have this altitude jump center up here. They come down and inspect ours, and then we go up and inspect theirs.
Great.
I just thought, and then I called the state of Utah, and I told them, I said, do you know that this is going, well, we don't govern that crap. You know, we're not governing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. So
correct me if I'm wrong, you have had a hand in helping set some of the standards.
Oh, totally. Okay. So
before we get there,
yeah,
we're going to take a break.
That's
Hear
right.
from our sponsors, and then I want to hear all about ASTM and what you've done for them.
Okay. Well, we're back at the zip files, and so me and Nate were just kind of sharing a little bit more, and he was asking about the brake system and the different polymers that we've used. And so the cool thing about this trolley is it's actually a fail-safe. So the zipline industry wants a fail-safe system. They also actually say that they want a 3-to-1 factor of safety, which, in my opinion, 2 brakes and a spring system.
That was going to be one of my questions, is that, you know, that fail factor, how much?
Exactly. And so for some reason, if your, you know, zipline guide doesn't pay attention and that comes out or it wears out and they just not, you know, this brake here is going to stop you.
Yeah.
So it's a little higher coefficient of friction, and they're going to want to, you know, replace this because they're going to be rescuing people, you know, more often because it's running into the fail-safe brake. But that's the way we built Park City back in the day.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
You bet.
So I can help the audience understand.
Yeah, do.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of fail-safe, I worked in an industry that used a lot of poisonous gases.
Yeah.
And we had a limit that said, with, you know, in an 8-hour shift, you can be exposed to 5 parts per million of, let's say, hydrochloric acid gas. I think that actually is the limit for hydrochloric acid gas.
Yeah.
The fail-safe is us saying, well, no, we're going to cut that in half, and we're not going to let anybody work over 2.5 parts per million.
Makes sense.
Would that be a good example of what a fail-safe might be, or are we talking about something a little different?
It's a little bit different.
Okay.
So the way it fail-safe, so in the industry, they sometimes term it as primary and secondary.
Okay.
So you have a primary brake, and if that one fails, then you have a secondary. And there's groups like Headrush Technologies, and they've got the Zip Stops, which is a common brake system. I investigated them accidents too, but with their system, their fail-safe is you put that system in, but then you back it up with one that doesn't ever get engaged unless this one fails. Yeah. So that's fail-safe.
Okay.
And so
I was wrong.
But
great.
you're right in that same line where you're cutting it in half. And it might be
There's a term for that, and I suddenly can't remember.
Yeah.
You know, when you take the limit and then you cut it in half just to make sure that you're always within that safe zone.
Well,
which I'm sure you're dealing with too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, so I'm going to tell you another story. So I'm up at this. So I get this call. Hey, we got another case up at this ski resort up Provo Canyon, and I said, all right, well, give me the incident reports, okay? And so the guy, he's a guitar player, and he's with his friends, and they're guitar players. They play up in Park City. Well, they decided in October that they're going to go ride the zip line. And so they go up there, and they ride the zip line, and it's cold. Well, there's a problem with this zip line that apparently had been going on a while, and being cold, when he comes in, it's got a little brake system, he bounces. And so the bouncing puts his hand in a compromising position because there's some moving components up there. He pulls his glove off and says, what happened to my finger? And he's yelling, he's like, my finger, you know, and he's a guitar player. And the guide at this resort gets on the radio and says, another finger.
Another finger? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, you know what we do on, those are almost like sentinel events, even though it's not a death, but you've taken a digit off of somebody.
Yeah.
And so we stop everything in our practice, and I'm sure you do too, and we fix that problem.
Oh yeah. Nothing happens until we figure out what happened, and you know, we mitigate it. We had I'll call it an overpressurization event. Some people might say explosion. And I mean, we shut things down for 3 months until we had the mitigation in place, and we were fairly certain that we had solved it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were wrong.
Yeah, and that's why
and
you
that
test
happens
again.
too, right?
It does.
Like
it does.
sometimes you look at all the evidence, all the data, you take your best guess, and you know, and it's funny to me because I see, let's say with like the plane crash that we had recently,
Yeah.
right, in
Yeah.
DC, somebody's going to come out at some point and say we figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been in industry long enough to know that when they say that, they're probably right 80% of the time. You're not always right. And so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
these accidents require a ton of investigation.
They do.
And you have to start with some assumptions, really many assumptions, and then you start to
you start
narrow
doing
those
kind of,
down.
yeah.
You start to act through those assumptions, you know, by proving them wrong, proving them right. And sometimes you don't even get it right.
Yeah, well, and that's what this stage gate and this, you know, product process, you want to do kind of an expectation. We built this product, we kind of expect it to do this, and you'll be surprised, but, you know, you get those awe moments, you know, where you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. But just to finish up that little story, so I get in there, I'm going into deposition. The night before, these defense attorneys like to dump stuff on me. So they dumped 30 documents on me that I had to get through and before the deposition. In those documents, there was 17 hand injuries prior to his, 13 of them to fingers. And so I think it was just time because I think the owner of this establishment decided he wasn't going to own it anymore. And it's probably because of the zipline, if you remember who that guy is, and I won't name names, but it's unfortunate that...
I have to ask a question. I come from an industry where that's completely unacceptable.
I know.
What's the difference? Do they not have OSHA involved?
No. The big difference is they have their own inspectors. And this blows you away. So a little thing, so the industry says 6 miles per hour or any faster, you need an emergency brake. A reset, auto reset, not one that a patron resets or a participant, and they're trying to change that name there, but you want a spring system, something that's always going to replace, you know, it's like we don't build roller coasters, so until the people on the coaster on the third turn make sure you duck because there's a chainsaw coming. You know, we don't do that. And so the big thing is that we want to make sure that we account for whatever we're doing and make sure that that's happening, but it's not happening. And so with the 6 mile an hour zone, what I found out with some of these big players is they were using a speed gun. Speed gun like you use when you're throwing your ball or you want to maybe, you know,
baseball.
yeah, that type of thing. And they start reading at 10 miles an hour. They don't go down to 6.
Oh.
And so what they told me they were doing, which I just thought, oh, as an engineer, you just shake your head and say, well, just hypothetically, right? But they would shoot, they'd capture the speed of the guy out 20 feet out and say, well, he got to 6 miles per hour. If we saw him out at 20 feet out, he's definitely slowed down to 6. And it might work sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time because the temperatures change and the weight of the rider changes.
There's a big difference between 6 miles an hour and 10 miles an hour.
It is. And you know, death, it's like, you know, death starts happening, you know, at 30 feet, you know, and now you're into that speed, you know. And so it's horrible. I've got a lot of YouTube videos that have accidents.
I want to move into a little bit about standards.
Okay.
And then I want to move into why you're going to need to hire the right people.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like nobody else has.
No, we're doing groundbreaking stuff. And
Yeah.
so to the standards, so this is kind of an interesting thing. The ACCT, the ones that created that little standard, I've written a lot about them and they don't like me. In fact, a lot of it, the problem is a lot of their big shots, I've investigated their accidents. You know, they were the builder, they were the inspector, whatever. But let's just fix the problem. Just because I found something, let's just fix it now. Let's not get all mad at me because I'm telling the truth. And so what's happening is, and this blew me away, every standard in the U.S. contacted me within the last 6 months and said, will you be on our board?
Wow.
Yeah, and I've already worked with ASTM 2959, which is the zipline standard, the one that's been around since 2013. They added friction braking and spring braking to that standard in 2024, and it was because of that letter, the one that I talked to you about with that coming in on my birthday, and I was all mad because the ACCT was trying to raise the speed limit to 15 miles an hour, and they weren't even controlling the brake problem. And so that master's degree in technical writing really made a difference. It did not fall on deaf ears, you know.
Do you feel like there ever could be a day they could raise the speed limit?
Be able to read it?
Raise the speed limit.
Well, I think ASTM is doing that, but what they're trying to do is put enough systems in there, you know, checks.
Yeah.
You got to have a fail-safe this, and this, and over this speed you're doing that. But I don't think most people want to come in at 20, 30 miles an hour and stop.
I might.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to stop you because you're a big man, you know, and so. But what I've learned is a lot of people like the enjoyment of just kind of a casual ride, knowing that there's nothing bad going to happen. And I found this out at the Little Piney zip line down in Nephi, a church camp down there. I went down and I showed them my trolley and I said, let's put it on, let's try it. And they were running just a two-wheel trolley that was slamming into the spring kind of a bungee thing. And I put it out there. Kids all showed up. I said, who wants to go fast? Who wants to go slow? Everybody wanted to go slow. Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, even the thrill seekers, they wanted the safety, you know. And so that was really interesting to me.
Not expecting that answer.
Yeah. And so it was fun. I got to, and I've got a few videos on that kind of.
So you've been changing this industry since 2011.
Yeah, I literally got into the expert witness work in 2014.
Okay.
ASTM, this was a great story. The guy who was the task group member was working on a zip line in Fremont Street down in Las Vegas. His name is Jared Krupa. He's a good guy. Now he's the vice president of ASTM F24, the amusement. He calls me up. I just moved from Arizona to Washington. He says, hey, would you want to come down and see me? I'd like to talk to you, because he knew me from some other people. I don't know how, but I mean, just different people that probably the ones that were on my patents, you know, Sean Lerner and Eric Silvick, the Park City guy. And so I said, well, I just had a surgery, and I don't think I'm going to drive to Eric and he said, I'll come up and see you. So he drove all the way up to my place in Washington just to meet me. And I was like, wow. That's really, and he's a great guy, good family man, and you know, it's
That's
just,
when you know you have something.
well, and
and people need to hear it.
yeah, it's just I want to share this because I'm getting old. You know, I don't know how much longer I've got. I mean, I've got ancestors that living into their 90s right now, but I want to do something now. You know, I'm tired of investigating accidents. You know, our friend Dr. John Skidmore.
Yes.
Yeah, he dumped his practice after watching the movie Oliver, or it was a play.
You told me about that. Yeah.
I mean,
he got to see the dark themes behind the pretty picture.
Exactly.
And it changed him a little bit.
It does.
And so, where was I going with that? Now that it's been 10 years and you're starting to see change in standards, has that led to a change in rate of incidents yet?
No.
Not yet.
No. Because what I've learned, especially with this, you know, these master's program I'm in, trying to get people to change is hard.
Yes.
And a good friend of mine, Ken Moore of Robertson Harness, when he came over to my house, and I'd thrown a zip line up over my garage and down to the fence on the other side, you know, and we were testing people. Oh, you can't test zip lines like that. I'm like, physics is physics. I test them in my basement on these little small miniature that I 3D print. And Ken's telling me, he's like, oh, you've got a great product, but it's going to take 10 years. And that was in 2019, so.
I mean, that's how,
yeah.
That's true. That's how it works, right?
And that's why I want to build ZAP. Because I want to build this giant challenge course with 45-degree slopes. People are all stopping. We got 600-pound zip liners in their motorized wheelchairs stopping before they hit the springs. People are going to notice. They're going to say, hey, our zip line doesn't stop people like that. We come in fast. We're always rescuing people. Some people are getting hurt. Why don't we have the friction? And that's what it's going to take.
So
you know.
You need that proof of concept.
Well, it's because they won't buy from me. I've had people who have literally started buying from me 6 years ago, Stop buying from me because I investigated an accident where I saw they had built the course. And I'm like, I give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not trying to say, yeah, pull that guy in right now because I know him and because I'm selling to him.
Yeah.
But he just stopped buying from me.
Man.
So it's like, yeah.
At the end of the day, if you can say the words, we sent 100,000 people down zip lines, fun zip lines,
Yeah.
and we did it all, and it was safe.
And I
That's
can
a
do
powerful
that.
message.
I can do that. Because Park City Mountain Resort, I talked to their Vail resorts, and I keep telling him, give me the data because I know you told me that. I said, I asked him back on July 24th of this past year, I said, Jamie, have you had any braking related accidents at Park City Mountain Resort? And he said, no. That's 23 years. When the industry, because you can run 100,000 people through a zip line every year. And you have 2 lines. We put 350 people through in a day on a course that we had in Spanish Fork. And so it's doable. So if you were to follow the pattern of what the industry is saying, 15 accidents per 100,000, that's 15 accidents for every year at Park City, and they have 0.
Wow.
I mean, that's a statement.
Nice.
It is.
So that statement exists.
It does. They're breaking world records still.
So let's talk about hiring.
Yeah.
You're going to need the right people in the right places.
That's a tough subject. And the cool thing is, I've got a plan. I happened to go skiing with a friend of mine, from our groups that we see, and he was telling me about this company he worked for up in Washington that did non-destructive testing.
Yeah.
And so they had a great company, but what they did, and I looked it up on ChatGPT, and there's actually 4 different models or processes that do this. So the employees come in, and you want to select your employees it's like slow to hire, quick to fire. I mean, that's what I learned at Intermountain Healthcare from my wife because she was compliance and quality manager. But we're going to get the right people, and then we're going to treat them so good. And so what we're going to do is do exactly what they do. We pay them a set wage, but then they also get a share of the company. And so the way he told me that it worked is everybody gets this, and as the company, and this company was successful, they had a good, thing going. He said, what happens is if somebody quits, you have 5 years before you can pull out all that money that the company's been accumulated for you. And he said, if they fire you, they just want to get rid of it, and they'll just give you, But the cool thing, he said, that 5 years now, I'm getting a dividend that I'll never take that money back out because now I've got income that's coming in all the time. Rather than me just go and take that lump sum out, which you can after 5 years. But I thought, that's the way to do it. And then create a place that's fun. You've heard my Smile campaign. You've commented on it, spread motivation, inspiration, love, and encouragement. And you do that at a place, people are going to be happier at the place, working with people, people coming in. And that's what the world needs right now.
There's a way to do that with safety. And I think not a lot of companies in the manufacturing industry do this, and I wish they all would. It's something called the Good Catch Program. Have you heard of that?
I haven't. Enlighten me.
Extremely simple. Once a month or once a quarter, you set up, whatever deadline you want to implement. Every employee is required to find one thing that they can do to make the workplace safer. And I'm looking at, we got some cords on the floor.
Yeah. In this room we got.
Oftentimes it was just moving cords out of the way on the floor.
Yeah.
Or moving a ladder out of a walkway. Most of the time it was something simple. But what was cool about it is they would offer a $250 reward, I believe, each quarter. No, each month. Actually, it was $50 each month, $250 each quarter. And then they had a grand prize for everybody across the different locations who won $1,000 each quarter.
That is cool.
And it's just a really fun incentive because most of the time I'm like, I want to get it out of the way. I'm just going to move a ladder and call it good. Well, maybe I'm not putting in 100%, but I'm still doing the requirement, and it still keeps me thinking about safety on a near daily basis.
Well, you got an accountability program.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to keep everybody in check.
Rewards.
Oh, wait a minute. You don't want to climb up that ladder because you don't have your harness on. I know you're going to be going over 5 feet, and that's an OSHA violation. But you do it in a nice way.
Yeah, and that's something you could sometimes that's what good catches were. It's like, hey, I saw somebody working above 4 feet without a harness.
Yeah.
And I just reminded them.
Yeah.
It's a great good catch,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And when I went to when I left Micron, IM Flash, TI, changed hands many times, and went to the new company I was working for, Ultra Safe Nuclear, I made sure we implemented that program.
Good for you.
I went to the safety department. I'm like, hey, you want
This
to know
works.
the best way to adopt safety culture within your people? It's really easy. It's really simple, and everybody's gonna love it.
Yeah.
Because there's a chance for some rewards. Now, we didn't give out rewards. We had this little mini, it was like a WrestleMania type belt with a big medal on it, and we would just hand it off to whoever won it that week. You know, it was still fun. Right?
Yeah, you get a trophy. You get. I'm thinking, you get to drive the boss's Porsche for the week.
Ooh, there you go.
Because I want to make it fun. Well, I sold two.
You got to get one first.
I sold them. I had to sell them. My wife made me sell them before I moved up here. I had two Porsches. One was slant nose, but one of the things I thought about and I haven't implemented, so it's just kind of in this first stage, is when I hire people, I'm going to ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I'm going to look for anybody that wants to be in medical, anybody that wants to be in sales, anybody that wants to be in engineering, because those are going to be my medical team when I'm training to use the defibrillator and all the other stuff. So that's going to be my team because they're already wanting to learn that. Then my engineers are going to be over like inspections. Yep. But realistically, even with the sales and everything else, I want every staff member to be an inspector because they're going to wear a GoPro or a harness, and I want them looking to make sure that there's not something that's going to injure a patron. And we're going to do that. It's going to be I love the rewards program and catching things because we can do better as an industry. We really can. And people go to places like what we're going to do to have fun. Yeah. And
world-class.
Exactly. World-class, game-changing, Zap 100. And not to take off, but do you have any other thoughts or whatever? I mean, closing thoughts you want to share?
Boy, I love the vision. I love the dream.
It's got some excitement, doesn't it?
It's one of those things where you see the need, and I like that. Not only do you get to build the vision, the dream, but you get to make a statement while doing it. To say, hey guys, this is possible, and we've done it here in Utah County.
Well,
Present. I love this place. Unless you're thinking somewhere else.
No, so Jim, one of our board members, our advisory board members, he literally wants to build 10 at once, the first 10 franchise. But you remember recommending this book?
Did you hear about it before I recommended it?
No.
Yes.
I bought it after you recommended it, and I saw
on your LinkedIn you mentioned it, and I'm like, I think I said something like, I wonder where you heard about that.
It was Nate. And I tell you, I read this and I'm like, I could be writing it because we have literally been swimming in the red ocean with our stuff because people are shooting us down because we're coming in, seeing all the problems. But now...
It's a very simple concept. Every new idea creates a blue ocean, and all the sharks come along to turn it red because they want to take advantage of what you built. Yeah. And so this book helps teach you how to keep your ocean blue every time it starts to turn red. Yeah. And I love to pick that up.
Look, I mean, look at the pans. I'm going through it a second time, so. But
beautiful.
Yeah, there's so much to be taught and learned to do things better, and so we learn from everybody. I know what my strengths are. I've done the, Strength Finder 2.0. It's like risk management and innovation. And I know where my gaps are and what needs to be filled. And so I try to put people to fill those gaps. And my advisory board, they're in there right now, but they're probably not going to all be staying, because they have lives. And so we're going to bring on the people that are,
Well, you're in a good place.
Yes.
A lot of entrepreneurs,
a
lot of high achievers, which is why I love 1 million cups. If I can give them a shout out.
I tell you, 1 million cups.
1 million cups, definitely. Great place to be. It revitalizes me every week.
Toastmasters too.
Too. You're just in the company of other high achievers. And even though I feel like an underachiever around all these people, it's still such a wonderful environment. And even in the last, 7 months since I started coming, wonderful place to be. And I've seen so much improvement in my own life. I love it.
Well, and just a little bit about that. I formed my board from 1 million cups and Toastmasters because I knew what I could see the strengths that certain people were going to do and bring to the table. And I tell you, I think they sell everything. You know, I try to, whenever I put out a pitch and show people, okay, this is what we're looking for, I always list my board in the appendix. This is what Leanne Cross does. She, you know, opened the doors for Overstock.com, ran it for 10 years. I mean, now she's at Liberty Safe. They've got their second franchise in Vegas. I mean, I hope, you know, she takes off. But you've met her at what,
She sounds like
Thursday.
an accelerator.
Oh, she's a powerhouse dynamo. Really is. And I think you've met her at our
Yes.
Thursday meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, and so,
She's a great speaker too.
yes.
I love it. Love Toastmasters.
Well,
Awesome, brother.
that's the end of our zipped file this week. And I forgot to mention that today is February 5th, 2025. And I should have brought that up the first day. But yeah, keep us in mind. If you're looking to invest or if you're looking to change the world or you want to know how we did it, connect with us. We'd love to have you on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you, man. All right.
That was great.